Goni, thanks for introducing us. I don't think we really need to say any more about ourselves, so I will just pass over to Matt, who's going to start us off with an introduction to digital as a whole.
Thank you, Gill, and good afternoon, everybody. Goni, thank you ever so much for the very kind introductions. I think the first thing to say is that I speak far too quickly, and even with English as my predominant language, I'm routinely told, including running a hackathon today with a number of US colleagues, that I still speak too quickly. So if I'm doing that, please just let us know and I will slow it down. The second point relates to the slide in front of you, is that the vernacular and the language we use is not the language we grew up with. I've been in digital marketing for over 10 years, and it can be a complex field, and it's always changing. And I think something worth noting is that Goni mentioned we're a UK-based health communications agency. We are, but we also do a lot of work. About 60% of our work is global, and we cover pretty much all regions in relation to creating content, research, insights, publishing content, social media. So we really understand universal behaviours. And if I'm honest, there aren't many markets now which behave differently when engaging with content or sharing content, with the exclusion of China and Russia in relation to search behaviours and the obvious governmental approach. So, onwards. On that note, it is a revolution of how we communicate. Business hasn't changed. We still have a transaction of money. We engage with people in order to transfer goods or try and drive behavioural change. But the landscape in which we do that has changed exponentially. And when many of us probably were working in the 90s and early noughties, the landscape was pretty passive. Big corporations came up with key messages and they pushed them out to the consumers without too much feedback. And that was based on stimulus from pretty much 4 areas: TV, radio, print, or display. If I take you forwards 20 years, the landscape has changed exponentially. And I've worked in this space for a long time, and not even I am an expert in all of these areas. And the exponential growth in the last 3 years alone has seen this market get even more complex. So today, I think what I'd like to say is we're going to work to, I guess, the lowest common denominator, to a pace that suits everybody. And there may be areas where you feel you understand this, but hopefully it'll be something for everyone to take away and apply 2 or 3 bits of insights and thoughts to change the way you engage currently. One of the companies I run is a search engine marketing and search engine optimization company. And the reason being for my interest in that area is that every single person with access to the World Wide Web pretty much starts their hunt for information in the same place. And if that universal behavior around going to a search engine is so common, how do we harness it? Because the fundamental statistics which show we need to harness it is it is the first step, and 80% of people won't look past the first page, with 50% of all clicks being taken by the first 3 organic results. And they're the results that aren't in the little grey bar at the top. That's paid media. They're organic search engine results that fall in below that. So that's where you want your brand or your communications or your messaging to be. So fundamentally, optimizing your online content, not just your digital content, but anything that exists in that space, it can be static as well, for search engines, means that your content is more likely to be visible to people who need it most. And we work with the COPD Foundation, we run a COPD community, but let's go sideways a little bit. When people are diagnosed with chronic conditions, they want relevant, reliable, credible information. And if I'm really honest, they don't really care about the source. They want reliability in terms of science and background, but they want a positive user experience, which is consistent across all platforms. And one of the areas which has changed this landscape more than any is social media. Now, social media several years ago, I think in the healthcare space, wasn't considered on the prescription only medicine side because of the adverse events tracking and complications. But slowly, even the most reticent industry, which is the pharma and the healthcare industry, has embraced social media, recognizing that people want to feel that they are part of a community. They want to hear what it's like to live with a condition. Carers want to know what it's like to have partners who live with the condition, and how does it impact family. So worldwide, the phenomenon has now been universally adopted to the point which is a little bit contentious, that the Arab Spring, an uprising 4 years ago now, was coordinated via social media platforms. So it's a truly global phenomenon. Individuals living with chronic conditions say they prefer to get online support groups. Sorry, I've got to move that. Yeah, that's the one. Prefer visiting online support groups rather than going to a healthcare professional. And online patient support groups empower patients and provide a valuable sense of community. So I'll hand you over to Gill to talk about some of the common hurdles, and then I'll come back to talk about search engine optimization and on-site and off-site technical aspects. So a bit geeky.
Thanks, Matt. So just before we dive into all of the things that you can do online, we just wanted to kind of put your mind at rest about some of the common hurdles that a lot of people kind of say to us when we first start talking about social media, just so that you know that you can overcome them and they're not sitting playing at the back of your mind throughout the rest of this conversation. So the first one, our social media output is not aligned with our wider objectives. For us, we think this is really quite an easy challenge to overcome. We will talk about objective settings shortly, but it is really important when you start interacting on social media platforms or other online platforms that you think about what you and your organisation are trying to achieve, and then think about what you therefore want to do on social media to support that. Secondly, we don't have time, which is also quite closely connected to we don't have resources. And I realise you're all very busy people, and it can seem like social media will eat up a lot of your time. And hopefully by the end of the conversation today, you'll be reassured that you can get started on social media and use digital channels without it taking up all of your day. And certainly our recommendation would be it's better to take on one extra channel and do it well than try and do everything, which would need a lot of time to complete accurately. How do I measure if it's working? This is something that a lot of people say to us, well, social media is great, but I can't really tell if it's working. I can't measure it. And actually, a lot of the social media platforms have great analytics tools built into them that allow you to see very quickly, at just the click of a button, how many people are seeing your content, who's interacting with it, and are they sharing it, liking it, and get the reactions from them towards your content. So it is really easy to see if your content is working. We don't have any suitable content. Often that's not true. If you go back and look at all of the content that you've produced, any patient leaflets, for example, or posters, you'll often find that there's quite a few items that you can very easily adapt to be placed online very quickly. But also creating new content doesn't have to be a big task. Sometimes, and particularly in social media communities, answering people's questions that come up time and again is enough. And finally, my audience isn't finding me. And Matt alluded to that in his previous slides about increasing your visibility and the importance of search. And he will go into a little bit more depth about how you can optimize your content and your platforms for search to help improve the visibility of you and to your audiences. So then talking about planning your social media and digital campaigns. And that first step is the all-important objectives. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really important to ensure that when you're using digital and social media channels, that what you're doing really supports the overall objectives of your business. We would always suggest that you try and develop objectives that are SMART. So that means that they're specific, you're really clear about what you want to achieve, measurable, put together some metrics that allow you to see when you've achieved those objectives so you can tick them off. Achievable and realistic. There's nothing worse than having an objective that you know you can't reach. So we don't suggest that you set the bar so low that you know for sure you can do it, and try and reach a little bit, but do make sure it's something that's achievable and realistic. And finally, time oriented. Put a time frame on the objective so that you have a period of time over which you focus on delivering that. For each social media channel, your objective is likely to be slightly different. So we've put together some suggested objectives in the grid on the left-hand side of the screen, just to kind of demonstrate how you may have an overarching organisation objective to increase participation in fundraising activities by 20% over the next 6 months. But when it comes to social media, you may have targets that are slightly different. So for your social media platforms, your targets that support that overarching objective may be to increase shares of posts on our social media channels about activities, and increase the number of people visiting our event sign-up forms on that social media platform. And then you can see the metrics which would allow you to measure the success of that activity. Another important part about planning social media and digital campaigns is about identifying your audience. Now, I'm sure you're all really very familiar with the kinds of people that you deal with, perhaps on a day-to-day basis, the people that may use any helplines that you have, the people that you meet at congresses and conferences and meetings. What's important when thinking about social media is to really understand their behaviours online. So you want to know what topics are your audience talking about in the online space. And that might be quite different from what they talk about when they meet with you or when they call you, or the kind of conversations that they're having with their doctors. You should also think about perhaps any questions that you hear time and again from patients. So if you find a lot of people are ringing a helpline or going to your forums and asking the same question over and over, that may be an indicator that they can't get that information online in the search engines. And so that may be an area that you would want to focus your content on. But you also want to think about what platforms your audiences are already using. Are they on Twitter? Are they on Facebook? And it's really easy to find out the answers to all of these questions. Most of the platforms have their own inbuilt search functions, which allow you to see quite a lot of information about who's there and the kind of conversations that they're having. When it comes to understanding what information they're searching for, you could use a tool such as the free Google Keyword Planner, which allows you to see and understand the kind of search terms that your audience is using in search engines, and that will help you have that basic information you need to start with optimizing your content and using those terms within your content and in the technical elements of your site. And then privacy considerations. We're just going to touch on this really very lightly. It's quite a big topic, and we would usually suggest that you have a legal person look at the privacy policy on your website and digital content. So it's really important, if you have a website or a web property, to ensure that you have a clear privacy policy which outlines how you plan to use and store your visitors' information. But another thing to consider is how you feel when you go on a website and you're asked to enter your email address and your postcode and then your credit card details, and you may think, actually, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be sent a lot of spam information. I don't want them to know all of that about me. So it's really important that if you are asking people to sign up for newsletters or to access forums, that you try and make that barrier to entry as low as possible. And there's actually some recent research that showed that if you reduce the number of fields that you ask people to fill in on a form from 4 fields to 3, they increase conversions, so the number of people completing that form and signing up to a newsletter, by 50%, which you can see just by asking for one less piece of information, you really do increase the amount of engagement with your content. And finally, on a slightly separate note, think about when you're setting up your organisational accounts on different social media platforms, and consider using the options that allow you to review posts before you allow them live on your page. Now, not all of the social media platforms have this functionality, and if you're going to use it, it's important that you're staffing your pages and your areas all the time so that you can approve and moderate posts and release them live quickly. But that may be a valuable way for you to see the kind of posts people are posting before they go live. So that's the initial introduction to planning social media and digital campaigns. Matt's going to come back now to talk about search engine optimization, and then we'll look at the more social media elements of online communication.
Thank you, Gill. Okay, again, as well as speaking too quickly, I have a tendency to get very geeky and very technical. So I'm going to speak as passionately as I can around SEO, search engine optimization, and SEM, search engine marketing, without using too many technical terms. I think the first thing to mention is that I present on SEO and SEM globally to thousands of people, and I fundamentally believe that many outside of the digital space think it's a bit of a dark art. It's like Harry Potter. It's not fully understood. Search marketing is the biggest media employer globally in all major cities, from LA, New York, London, Rome, Singapore, Shanghai, wherever you go. It overtook TV media spend in 2009. And it tapped into the universal behaviours I talked about earlier. The fact that when anyone needs information, they go to a search engine. And for purposes of today, we're going to call it Google, because globally, Google owns about 80% of the market. There's some markets in Europe which utilise Bing and Microsoft platform, and in APAC, Yahoo and Baidu and platforms like that exist. But Google dominates, and most of the other indexing systems work off the back of its algorithm. Now, search engine optimization, I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey if I can, works in two ways. On-page optimization accounts for roughly 40% of the authority you can build for your brand, and I'll talk about what that means. The rest comes down to something called off-page optimization, and it's less understood, it's certainly less practiced, but as you can see by the numbers, it's technically actually more important. Now, to try and allow you to visualize some of these components, the on-site elements are technical back-end elements. And if you imagine every website has an Excel spreadsheet behind it, and the Excel spreadsheet has lots of aspects. Some are, say, title, some say descriptions, meta descriptions, H1s, alt tags, and search engine sends out what's called Google bots, robot TXTs, and they crawl and look at different websites to understand what they're about. The better structured the equivalent of that Excel spreadsheet that sits behind a site, and that is called the information architecture, the better structured that is, the more Google can determine that your site is about something. And those Google bots, those robots, look at over 200 factors for every single website. Now, what Google does is publishes guidelines on best practice. We'd like to have between 155 and 165 characters for your meta description. And it gives you that guidance the whole way through. It's free to find, it's very easy to follow, and you'd be absolutely amazed at how many major international brands ignore it. If Google's asking you to do something, it makes sense to do it, and it offers you free guidance on how to do that. So, understanding the behaviors which enable you to structure the information architecture, that's the elements that sit in the code that tell the search engine what the site's about, enable you to harness the vast volumes of organic interest in a brand. Let's take the word COPD. There will be tens of thousands of searches for the exact query COPD every single month in North America. And Google's job is to determine which sites have the most authority in relation to COPD. Understanding your keyword silos. So if you have a blog or a platform and you want to focus on COPD and gardening, and that's your focus area, you need to understand what all of the semantic search terms are, what people are typing into a search engine, and what the volumes of those searches are. And Gill talked about tools such as Keyword Planner, which are free for you to use, and you can just type it into Google, and actually it's a very simple approach to going through Keyword Planner to looking what are the key search terms. Another platform's Uber Suggest, which allows you to look at related terms and volumes. So you can start to map out what are you going to publish content around and what are the keywords you need to use. So once you've filled out the on-site aspects, the information architecture and those technical elements of the site are as solid as can be, that enables you to build up. And if you imagine building a house on sand, it's going to fall down. But if you build solid foundations, you can start to layer on top of it, and the search engine understands that these people are an authority in these areas. The way they understand that even better is when other people start to point to your site as a point of reference. And this is off-page SEO. So I'm going to go to the next slide and talk about off-page SEO. Actually, let's go forward a slide and I'll come back if that's okay. So off-page SEO, once you've identified the keywords you want to use, if we talk about COPD and gardening, for example, if that's your predominant keyword that you want to win in, that's the area that you want to focus on as a niche, you want other people to use those words, and it's called anchor text, in their blogs, in their articles, in things they write about, and then you want them to put a backlink to your web page showing that you are, someone's pointing a link. Ultimately, it's a vote of confidence to your site. So the anchor text is the actual copy a reader sees, and that is hyperlinked, hopefully, to your website. So if we can put this into context, if the COPD Foundation, who are an online authority in COPD, are writing a blog or an article around depression and COPD, for example, and a blogger rings them or writes them and said, look, I've got a blog on depression and COPD, I'd love it if you could reference it. And the COPD Foundation writes in one of their copies, if people are struggling from anchor text, depression and COPD, and then that blogger would have provided a link, that'll be the backlink, that is a vote of confidence from the COPD Foundation site to the blog. Now, the more links you get, and there are two types of links, the more authority Google deems you to have. The links you want to ask for, if you are asking people for links, are do follow links. It sounds very simple, but most people will offer you a no follow link, which means they're not offering you any of their authority and it has no SEO value whatsoever. But if people offer you a do follow link, and believe me, they will, people who understand the web, who work with webmasters will happily do this, offers a significant amount of SEO value. So Google balances two things. The on-site aspects, has the site and the information architecture been written properly for me to understand what this site is about, and the off-site aspects, which are to do with how many people reference your site, and that's really important. Off-site SEO increases trust, authority, and reputation, and to get quite geeky, it's measured by two aspects around domain authority, and they are trust flow, how much people trust your site by referencing it, and citation flow, how often people cite your site for information. And the more authoritative the referencing site is, the more value you get. It increases page rank and page authority. Sites are given something called domain authority or page authority, and crudely put, it can be put between 1 to 10 or 1 to 100. Google gives Facebook a 10, it gives Amazon a 10. Quite funnily, it gives itself a 9, which I think is ironic. But it's important to try and get your page rank and your domain authority as high as possible. Because at a later point, we'll come on to talk about paid media. The higher your domain authority and your page rank, the lower your cost per click. So you get more value for money in paid media if you optimize your site organically and have high value trust signals from other sites. And what Google's trying to do in that sense is make the internet as fair as possible. And someone could launch a website tomorrow in COPD and they could have a big paid media budget and they could become the predominant feature in search engines. But as soon as they stopped paying, they would have no organic traffic. So it's a way of Google balancing the organic searches that you attract to a site with the paid media that will give you value for. And it's one of the strongest signals for achieving high rankings, the off-site elements. So that is a bit of a whistle-stop tour through SEO and SEM and how it works and how Google indexes your sites. I'm going to talk about a couple more points before I hand over to Gill to talk through platform selection. I cannot encourage you enough, and I apologise if you've already done this, to explore the world of Google Webmaster Tools and Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager if you're really geeky. They are free tools that Google provides to marketers or communications practitioners, people like us globally who are trying to provide services to people whose lives are profoundly impacted by health conditions. Now, they work slightly differently. Google Analytics tells you how people are traveling through your platform or your online portal, your property, where they're dropping off, what pages they visited, and it gives you a rich source of data, such as which platform they came from, iOS or Android, allowing you to think about how you structure content for emails, how you structure things for mobile platforms. It tells you where they're from. It tells you a vast amount of information, allowing you to understand how you create content moving forward, where people are dropping off. Is there a learning need? Is the content a bit rubbish? You need to improve it or potentially remove it. So that's Google Analytics. If you have a Gmail account, you can set that up for free, and you need to apply a small bit of code to every page of your site to point it to the analytics platform. If you can't do it and you ask your webmaster to do it, it takes minutes, so don't let them charge you a lot of money. The second tool I mentioned is Google Webmaster Tools. Now, Google Webmaster Tools is slightly different. Google Webmaster Tools is another free tool, and it tells you how a search engine perceives your site. So you can literally put in the URL and the link, and it will tell you that these parts of the sites are being crawled, but these parts over here aren't, and here are the fixes you need to make in order to improve it. So it's lovely. It tells you how a search engine is perceiving your site and tells you how to fix it for free. If you're so inclined, you can go into the HTML based on the keyword strategy and do it yourself, or you can ask people like us to do it or your colleagues in the US. Google Tag Manager is a little bit more complex. So those two whet your appetite, or those two are bread and butter for what you do. Please go and explore Google Tag Manager, which allows you to look at conversion optimization and measuring events. Over to Gill to talk through platform selection.
Thank you. So we'll now move on to look more closely at the social media side of digital communications. And the first thing to consider perhaps is which platforms you want to be present on. And there are so many out there. This grid here summarizes most of the main channels. I'm going to look in more detail at Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, which are really, I think, the core platforms. However, we thought this grid would be really helpful for you to see some of the differences between the platforms. So you can see that they all reach really very large audiences, but Facebook has by far the largest number of people active on the platform. The age ranges and genders are slightly different across the platforms, but although you're looking at this and seeing average ages around sort of late 20s, early 30s on most of these platforms, that doesn't mean to say that there aren't a large number of older people who are using these platforms. In fact, there's sort of a rising number of over 50s using different social media platforms and interacting on them regularly, using them to find information, to meet other people like them. But also when you're looking at the platform selection, it's really important to be thinking about what you want to achieve. Do you want to share information with people quickly, small news items? If that's what you're looking to do, then perhaps Twitter is better. If you're looking to open a dialogue and engage large numbers of people, then maybe considering Facebook would work better for you. Video, I think that's quite an obvious choice there. YouTube, although there are other platforms that you can use. If you were looking to perhaps build a network with other people who had a professional interest similar to you, or perhaps with a network of doctors or just other charitable organisations, then perhaps LinkedIn would be a better option. The other thing to consider is the best time to post. Now, this is something that you often only really find by trial and error to see when your audience and your people are active online. However, there is, generally speaking, a better time of day to post depending on the kind of platform. So LinkedIn, you'll see peaks in the morning and in the evening. That's because it's a business platform and a lot of people use it on their commute into work. So at the start and the end of the day to set up their conversations. Whereas things like Facebook, the activity period is around lunchtime, early afternoon, when people are looking for something to just keep them going after lunch. So a grid like this really helps you to get at a glance the difference between all of the channels. And I believe you'll be able to access these slides after the meeting, so you should be able to get hold of this grid quite easily. So we'll move on to look at each platform in turn. I'm not going to talk about how you set up your presence on those platforms, because each platform makes it very easy for you to set up an organisation's presence. What I wanted to focus on today was how you get the most from those platforms. So starting with Facebook, with over 1.3 billion users worldwide, Facebook makes it possible to reach a large number of people. And you can either set up pages or groups on Facebook. We would usually suggest that you set up a page. This gives you a great platform to write and schedule posts, but also to build engagement. It allows you to reach a bigger audience of people. The image on the right shows you the structure of a Facebook page. This particular Facebook page that you see here is the COPD Life is Calling Facebook page. That's the COPD community that is where I spend most of my day doing. That's where the team that I support are working to support people living with COPD. And this is a project that is funded by Novartis Pharmaceuticals. We have around 3,000 people active on the community, and we post approximately every other day, so around 14 posts a month. So you can see that that's not taking up too much time. We probably spend maybe half an hour a day looking at the platform and managing it, but behind that is all of the content generation. So how do we make a page like this really work for us, but also for the people that are engaging with the content? Firstly, starting a conversation. We really see this works on our page. The posts where we ask people, how was your day? Or we understand that it can be really difficult to explain life with COPD to those around you. How did you do it? Those kinds of posts are the ones where we get people responding with their thoughts, their own experiences. And as soon as one person starts by responding with their thoughts and experiences, someone else will come back and respond to them, and you start to see a conversation build. What we have also found to be really helpful in building a relationship with those people is responding to people, even if it's just to say, thank you very much. It lets the people who are active on your page know that you're there and you're listening to them, that you're not just using this as a channel to pump your information and your message out. You really are there for them. And put your followers in the spotlight. Facebook has now moved the content that people post onto your page right down into the bottom left-hand corner of the page. So it's really hard for other users to see this easily. So it's really a nice touch and people really appreciate it. If someone who follows your page posts an article or a piece of information that you believe is relevant to everyone else on your page and that you're comfortable with, we suggest reposting and resharing that onto the feed. That allows you to thank them personally, give them a sense of ownership of the content, but put that piece of content up front and center. It's another way to get great content for your page without having to spend time and money creating it yourself. But don't forget to say thank you to the person who highlighted it to you originally. And then how do you keep people coming back? Multimedia content is a great way to grab people's attention. You know, when you log on to Facebook, you've got all those posts flying past, and increasingly you'll see that more of them and more of them have videos and photographs. And the chances are that when you look at Facebook, the ones that you're most likely to look at are the ones with pictures or videos. And that's the same across the globe, across Facebook. A picture really does increase engagement with the post. Keep your content fresh and new. We use a schedule that allows us to see what we're going to be posting over the next month, and really trying to keep in touch with the latest milestones. Was it COPD Awareness Day? Is there another awareness day that might be relevant? So perhaps World Health Day is a great day to post general health information that might be useful. So we always try and keep in line with global or local milestones, posting content that's relevant so that we fit into people's everyday lives. You might also want to consider giving a sense of exclusivity to your Facebook page. So by this, posting just one or two items of content that are only for Facebook, or are posted to Facebook a couple of weeks before you put them on your web page or other channels. And this allows the people who follow your page to feel like they're getting something special from you, and that there's a reason they've signed up to Facebook. And in line with asking questions, you might want to consider hosting a Q&A with an expert on your Facebook page. So very quickly, a little case study to show you that this can work. This is a breast cancer case study. They had a campaign where they encouraged women to post a statement, "I like it on," and then they posted where they kept their handbag. Now, this was hugely successful, perhaps because "I like it on" could have an alternative meaning to other people's, so it kept people guessing. But also it was very easy for people to participate with and to share on their page. And they didn't just get visibility on Facebook, they had global online and print media coverage of the campaign, with millions of status updates catching worldwide attention. And what this shows is that you don't have to put a very large budget behind your campaign, that it can be small, it can be simple to gain traction and visibility. Moving on to look at Twitter. With Twitter, you have just 140 characters to communicate your message. However, there are some guidance to structuring a tweet to really give it legs and encourage people to share your content. Firstly, you want to make sure that people see your tweets. So it's important to use hashtags. These are simply the hash symbol that you find on your keyboard immediately in front of a word. And that word allows you to indicate what topic your tweet is covering. So think about what hashtags people are already using, and if they're appropriate and relevant to your tweets, use those, because the chances are that people are following them already, and so your tweet will be seen by more people. There's also a great free platform called Simpler, SYMPLUR. They collect healthcare hashtags. So you can go there and see a lot of healthcare hashtags that are already being used. But if you have a campaign hashtag or one that's specific to your organization that you're using, once it's been used for a little while, you can just submit that to them with a little information about what it is, and they will add it to their healthcare hashtag project, increasing the visibility of your content. Although you have 140 characters on Twitter, we always suggest that you stick to just 100 to 120 characters. And the reason for this is that when people retweet your content, your username gets added to the front of the tweet. And so if you've used all 140 characters, if someone presses the automatic retweet button, then Twitter will cut off the end of your tweet. And that's probably where the link that you've been sharing, or perhaps your hashtag is. So try and stick to just 100 to 120 characters if you can, which I realize can be pretty tricky at times. So the other thing to think about is a call to action. Not every tweet needs one, but if you can, tell people what you want them to do. Do you want them to share your tweet? Do you want them to watch a video, click to read a blog? Do you want them to comment or join a tweet chat? And a tweet chat is a really easy way to interact with your community. It can sound quite scary. I remember doing my first tweet chat and being really nervous about talking at all on Twitter and what people might say. But actually, with a little bit of thought and preparation beforehand, it's not that scary and it's really easy. A tweet chat is simply an interactive conversation held on Twitter at a specific time around a specific hashtag. And there are 4 key steps if you want to organise a tweet chat for your organisation. So you might decide that you want to offer people with COPD the chance to talk to a COPD nurse about the benefits of pulmonary rehabilitation, for example, in which case you could set up the hashtag. But your first thing you need to do is think about who will moderate. You need someone, probably from your organisation, who will open the conversation, much as Gonny did on this webinar, who will keep the conversation moving, make sure that people know who's talking. And if you've got a series of questions, they will post the questions so that the conversation continues to move. You need to think about any external experts that you want to speak at the meeting and what date and time works. Lunchtime is often a great time for people to participate in tweet chats. Secondly, it's really important that you promote your tweet chat, not just on Twitter. Think about adding a footer to your emails to highlight this to other people. Include a link on your website or a post on your Facebook page. Use every channel you have to encourage external participation. The third stage is delivery. So that's the tweet chat itself. Make sure that you introduce yourself as the moderator, welcome participants, and keep the conversation moving. And after the tweet chat, it doesn't end there. It's important to follow up, share the analytics and the transcript from your tweet chat, and consider perhaps developing a wrap-up blog to summarise the conversation. So a quick example here, which really highlights using popular hashtags. WaterAid hijacked the hashtag First World Problems. This is a hashtag that a lot of people use to moan about the kind of problems that aren't really that bad. Things like, I hate it when my leather seats aren't heated, or I hate it when my phone charger won't reach the bed. What they were trying to achieve was to get the general public to support their efforts in Haiti after the earthquake. So they took some of those tweets with first world problems and they asked people in Haiti to record short videos where they read that tweet out and then highlighted what issues and challenges they were facing. So they were playing along with the spirit of the First World Problems hashtag, which is quite light-hearted and funny, sort of laughing at yourself, but utilising a hashtag that a lot of people follow because it's amusing. They were able to increase the visibility of their campaign with almost 1 million views of the Haiti videos in just 1 week, and to date over 6 million views across the campaign's duration, generating lots of donations for WaterAid's campaign and increased awareness of the challenges in these third world areas. So this really demonstrates that if you can find the right hashtag and the right angle, you can really increase your reach. Now, I'm aware we started a little late. I think we should have time to cover off YouTube, but then I might pause to see if anyone has questions before we progress on, because we have quite a few more slides. So YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine and 4 billion videos are viewed on YouTube. Sorry, I've lost the right-hand side of my screen. Are viewed on YouTube every day. So, when you're thinking about YouTube, it's important to think about the different types of people and why people go to YouTube. There's you could say there were two types of people using YouTube. The people who are browsing, just kind of having a look, seeing what's there. So to capture their attention, you want to be providing them with inspiring new content that catches their eye as they move around the platform. But then as the second largest search engine, there are also people who are searching for information, and they are seeking relevant content that answers their questions. So how do you capture both of these groups and then keep them coming back to your channel? You maintain engagement with them through the creation of content series to keep people coming back. So perhaps working with a particular expert or well-known face, or think about a series of topics that come up regularly in the questions from your followers, so that you can say, this is the first video of 10. Keep coming back to our channel each week to see the next installment, which reminds people that they might want to subscribe so they don't miss that important next question. You should also consider organising your content into well-structured playlists. What this does is it allows you to build relationships with your followers by offering them one video that captures their attention, that draws them in to view your content, and then structuring a playlist where the next video automatically plays without them needing to interact on the platform. Allows you to draw people in to watch more of your content, move through, see more of your messages on the platform. And perhaps you're sitting there thinking, well, that's great, but I don't have the world's largest budget. Remember, we talked about not having enough resources earlier. You don't always need a high production value to create great video. For small news updates, you might want to consider something that's recorded on something as simple as the inbuilt webcam on your computer or a smartphone for those short, quick update videos. But it may also be worth collaborating with other groups that are near you to share resources and costs. So you can all share the cost of a studio hire for a single day, a cameraman and team, which allows you to really significantly reduce the cost of hiring professional support should you feel that that's necessary for the video you wish to create. And what's also really important to remember is that the average video view is 30 to 120 seconds. That's not very long. So you really need to plan your content to make sure you keep your video brief and interesting to drive engagement. And it is important to know that YouTube do have a not-for-profit program which offers you access to some of their resources free of charge. So it's absolutely worth looking into the YouTube not-for-profit program to see what resources are available to you. So looking at an example of YouTube and how you can use that. This is Refuge. Refuge is a UK charity that work with victims of domestic violence, and they wanted to raise awareness of domestic violence in the UK. So they looked at what was going on, what was popular online, and there's an increasingly large number of people developing online makeup tutorials. So they found one of these online vloggers who's creating online makeup tutorials, but was also a victim of domestic abuse. And they approached her to ask her to create a video with them to raise awareness. So in this case, instead of just applying makeup, she was applying makeup to hide the signs of domestic violence. This approach of using someone with an established network of followers and jumping on the trend for people searching for online makeup tutorials meant that Refuge were able to reach 444,000 subscribers on that vlogger's channel, and their video was viewed by over 1 million people in the first few weeks after launch, with media coverage across the globe. But also, in the first 48 hours of the campaign, their website received the same number of unique visitors as it would usually receive in 2 weeks, which shows you that people were not just watching the video, they were also following some of the overlay call to actions that were placed on the video to go back to the Refuge website to find out more about the organisation and what they offer. So the next platform is maybe less familiar, and that's Health Unlocked. Health Unlocked is the world's largest social network for health, with over 3 million visitors per month. And Health Unlocked is a free platform for not-for-profit organisations, and it's really easy to use. They've set the platform up specifically so you don't really require any technical knowledge or understanding to set up a community on Health Unlocked. So the action of setting up a community is really simple. There's just some key points to consider. You will need someone, or ideally a team of people from your organisation, to moderate conversations on the community. And to help them provide a consistent experience, you will want to provide them with guidance and a policy, but also to provide your community with a policy about what they can and can't say, what is and isn't acceptable behaviour. And Health Unlocked provide guidance in their setup materials around what kinds of things you might want to include in that policy. Having a couple of moderators means that you can always keep an eye on the conversations, but Health Unlocked suggests that you'll probably need about 2 hours per week to moderate your community. What having a community on Health Unlocked allows you to do is join with a large number of people who are on the platform to discuss their health and different health topics, and allows your community to be easily searchable and highly visible. It also allows you to build a relationship with people, to get insight and intelligence from people who want to connect with your organisation. So it's really important that you strike a balance between letting the community discuss their disease and their experiences and support each other in how they can live with their disease, but also to respond to members' questions if they've posted questions which have remained unanswered for a period of time. And you can also share information and links for your organisation, but it's key to remember that the primary focus for a community should be to allow participants to discuss with each other. Health Unlocked also provide a widget that you can add very easily to your website to allow you to build the community into your existing website, so that it's a seamless transition for people from your web presence to the community. And there are built-in tools on the platform for moderation and safety. So if you're considering setting up a community, a forum, and feel that it was going to be too difficult or too expensive to do, Health Unlocked could be a great platform for you. And some of the top tips in the box on the right-hand side of the slide can also be used in any custom forums that you have on your website already to help you engage with your users. So a quick case study, and then I think we'll probably wrap up the conversation there and take any questions anyone has. So Diabetes India used Health Unlocked to generate a community for people interested in diabetes-related issues. They took the approach of polls and quizzes to really engage with their community and draw them in, but they also had volunteer moderators. So it wasn't people from the Diabetes India charity that were running the community. They actually asked people participating in the community to help them with moderation. And what this approach to Health Unlocked did for them was allowed them to create a successful Health Unlocked forum with high engagement and a large following of 44,000 people, which shows you that in a very short amount of time, it is possible to engage a large number of people with your content. So those are sort of 4 of the main platforms, and we've also looked at some search engine optimization. I think we've probably run out of time there. So I don't know if anybody has any questions before we leave. Just opening the chat. So we've got the chat box open, and Kevin's just invited everyone to post any questions that you may have into the box, and then Matt and or I will be able to answer them for you on the video feed. And I think, Kevin, I'll make sure you have these slides so that you can share them with the group. But we also, there will shortly be a more detailed guide to all of these platforms and the other platforms we haven't covered today available online. And I'll make sure that Kevin and Gonny have that information as well, so they can make that available to you. So I'm going to pass back to Gonny to wrap up. Thank you very much.